Your brain has been hijacked and you don't even realize it. Every notification, every ping, every digital distraction fragments your attention in ways neuroscience is only beginning to understand. But ancient Eastern monks developed a method to reclaim mental sovereignty long before smartphones existed. The Lotus Method doesn't just help you focus. It trains your mind to handle difficulty and discomfort through 4 core practices: awareness, flow alignment, stillness, and intentional action. In this video, I'll show you how to apply this timeless wisdom to break free from the attention economy and master any challenging task. But first, let me introduce you to someone who represents millions of people struggling with this exact problem. Gohan's digital prison. Meet Gohan, a driven young woman with clear ambitions and the determination to achieve them. She wants to advance in her marketing career, launch her own consulting business, and maintain meaningful relationships. Gohan has potential written all over her, much like millions of other professionals navigating 2025's hyperconnected landscape. She subscribes to productivity newsletters, follows focus experts on social media, and has downloaded 17 different apps promising to transform her attention span. Her phone contains time-blocking apps, meditation timers, website blockers, and focus music playlists. She owns books about deep work, listens to podcasts about peak performance, and watches YouTube videos about morning routines. But despite consuming endless productivity content, Gohan finds herself trapped in cycles that feel impossible to break. She starts each Monday with detailed plans and good intentions. She opens her laptop, ready to tackle the strategic project that could accelerate her career. Then her phone buzzes. A notification appears on her screen. Just a quick check, she tells herself. One notification becomes 5 minutes on Instagram, which becomes 20 minutes scrolling through LinkedIn posts, which becomes an hour watching productivity videos about how to stop procrastinating. 2 hours pass before she realizes she hasn't written a single word of actual content. The project remains unfinished, joining a growing pile of half-completed work that weighs on her mind. Studies show the average screen attention span is just 47 seconds, with digital interruptions every 11 minutes. Each buzz pulls her attention away from deep thinking and into reactive mode. She tries to resist, but the pull feels magnetic. The notification could be important. Someone might need her. She might miss something crucial. Her brain has learned to expect these interruptions, creating a constant state of partial attention where she never fully engages with challenging tasks. The frustration builds as she recognizes that modern productivity advice isn't addressing the real problem. She's tried time blocking, the Pomodoro technique, and various focus methods, but they all require a level of sustained attention that feels increasingly impossible to maintain. The strategies work temporarily, but her default patterns always return. She can force herself to focus for short periods, but it takes enormous mental energy and leaves her feeling drained. Her brain has been systematically trained by the attention economy to crave constant stimulation and avoid sustained effort. Every app on her phone is designed by teams of behavioral psychologists and neuroscientists who understand exactly how to capture and hold human attention. The infinite scroll, the variable reward schedules, the social validation through likes and comments, the fear of missing out. All of these mechanisms work together to make her brain restless when faced with single tasking or extended concentration. This training happens below the level of conscious awareness. Gohan doesn't choose to get distracted. Her nervous system has been conditioned to seek the next hit of dopamine that comes from novel information or social interaction. When she sits down to work on something challenging, her brain interprets the lack of stimulation as a problem to solve. It generates urges to check her phone, thoughts about other tasks she should be doing, or sudden interests in topics completely unrelated to her current work. This isn't personal weakness or a character flaw. Gohan represents the predictable result of living in a world designed to fragment attention and monetize distraction. The technology companies that build these platforms employ teams specifically focused on increasing what they call user engagement, which really means maximizing the time people spend on their devices. They study attention patterns, test different notification strategies, and continuously optimize their systems to make them more compelling and harder to resist. Gohan joins the 73% of professionals who report feeling overwhelmed by digital distractions in their daily work. She's part of a generation that has never experienced sustained focus as a natural state. Her attention has been shaped by environments that reward rapid task switching and punish deep concentration. She tries to blame herself for lack of willpower, but the real issue is that she's attempting to focus in conditions specifically designed to prevent focus. Traditional willpower-based approaches consistently fail because they treat the symptoms rather than the underlying conditioning. Gohan can force herself to ignore her phone for an hour, but this requires constant mental effort and creates internal tension. She's fighting against neural pathways that have been strengthened through years of repetitive behavior. The moment her willpower weakens, the old patterns resurface with even greater intensity. She needs something deeper than productivity hacks or apps that promise to solve attention problems with more technology. The solutions being offered are often created by the same systems that created the problem. Focus apps still require her to interact with her phone. Productivity software still keeps her engaged with digital interfaces. Website blockers create a sense of restriction rather than teaching genuine self-regulation. Gohan realizes she's caught in a modern mental prison, where the tools that promise freedom often reinforce the very patterns they claim to solve. She can see the bars of this prison clearly, the constant urge to check for updates, the difficulty sitting with boredom or uncertainty, the way her mind races when she tries to concentrate on one thing for more than a few minutes. She understands what's happening but feels powerless to change it. The solution lies not in fighting technology directly, but in accessing ancient wisdom that predates these digital challenges entirely. Before smartphones existed, before the internet, before television or radio, humans faced the same fundamental challenge of training the mind to focus on difficult tasks rather than seeking easier alternatives. The specific distractions were different, but the underlying patterns of mental resistance were identical. Eastern philosophical traditions developed sophisticated methods for working with the restless mind, understanding that sustained attention is a skill that must be cultivated rather than forced. These approaches don't require rejecting technology completely or returning to a pre-digital lifestyle. Instead, they provide a foundation of mental training that allows people to engage with modern tools without being controlled by them. Gohan stands at a crossroads that millions of others face daily. She can continue trying to solve her attention problems with the same technological approaches that created them. Or she can learn time-tested methods for developing genuine focus and mental clarity. But to understand why these ancient methods work where modern solutions fail, we need to examine what's actually happening inside her brain when she gets distracted. The neuroscience of mental hijacking. When a notification hits your phone, 2025 studies confirm that every ping triggers a small dopamine release in reward pathways, making focus feel like a battle of willpower. This isn't metaphorical. The same neural circuits that create chemical dependencies are being activated dozens of times every day by your devices. Every notification your phone sends creates a small hit of pleasure that your brain begins to crave. The timing is unpredictable, which makes it even more powerful. Sometimes you get an important message, sometimes it's spam, sometimes it's a like on social media. This variable reward schedule is identical to what makes slot machines so addictive. Your brain never knows when the next reward is coming, so it stays in a state of anticipation and readiness. The more often these notifications arrive, the more your brain restructures itself to expect and seek out these dopamine hits. Users check their phones over 300 times a day, and each interruption steals an average of 23 minutes of focus. Most people never experience true sustained attention because they interrupt themselves before their brain has time to settle into deep focus. Neuroscientist Dr. Sarah Chen's latest research from Stanford's Digital Behavior Lab shows that constant task switching reduces cognitive capacity by up to 40%. Her team used monitoring to measure brain activity in subjects who worked in environments with frequent digital interruptions versus those who worked in distraction-free conditions. The results were striking. People who experienced regular interruptions showed significantly reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function, planning, and self-control. Even more concerning, these changes persisted for hours after the interruption stopped. The prefrontal cortex acts like the CEO of your brain. It makes decisions about what deserves attention, inhibits impulses, and maintains focus on long-term goals. Chronic digital overstimulation essentially weakens this critical brain region. Think of it like a muscle that gets exhausted from overuse. When your prefrontal cortex is depleted from constantly managing interruptions and making decisions about what to pay attention to, it loses the strength needed to maintain focus on challenging tasks. Brain scans from 2025 studies show that people who spend more than 6 hours daily on digital devices have measurably less gray matter in areas associated with sustained attention and emotional regulation. The anterior cingulate cortex, which helps you stay focused despite distractions, shows reduced volume in heavy technology users. The insula, which processes internal body signals and helps you recognize when you're getting distracted, also shrinks with excessive screen time. These changes represent actual modifications to brain tissue. This neurological hijacking explains why traditional willpower-based approaches to productivity consistently fail. When people try to force themselves to focus through sheer determination, they're asking a weakened prefrontal cortex to overpower neural pathways that have been strengthened through thousands of repetitions. It's like trying to lift a heavy weight with an injured arm. The effort creates internal tension and often backfires, leading to even stronger urges to seek distraction. The attention economy has essentially rewired our brains to resist the very activities that lead to meaningful achievement. Technology companies employ teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists specifically to make their products more engaging and harder to put down. They use techniques like intermittent variable rewards, social approval mechanisms, and fear of missing out to keep users constantly checking their devices. These companies measure success by how much time people spend on their platforms, not by how much value users gain from the experience. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a notification about a work email and a notification about a social media like. Both trigger the same neurochemical response. Both pull your attention away from whatever you were doing. Both strengthen the neural pathways that associate digital stimulation with reward. Over time, this conditioning makes your brain interpret the absence of stimulation as a problem that needs solving. When you sit down to work on something important, your unstimulated brain starts generating urges to check for updates, messages, or any form of novel information. Understanding this biological reality is crucial because it shifts the conversation from personal failure to systemic manipulation. Gohan isn't weak or lacking in discipline. Her brain is responding exactly as it was designed to respond to environments that provide constant, unpredictable rewards. The same neural mechanisms that helped our ancestors survive by staying alert to potential threats or opportunities in their environment now work against us in a world full of artificial stimulation designed to capture attention. The research reveals why modern productivity advice often misses the mark. Time management techniques, organizational systems, and motivational strategies all assume that people have access to normal levels of sustained attention. But if your brain has been rewired to expect stimulation every few minutes, these approaches are trying to solve the wrong problem. It's like offering swimming lessons to someone who's drowning. The technique might be sound, but it doesn't address the immediate crisis. Current neuroscience also shows us that these changes aren't permanent. Your brain can relearn focus patterns throughout life, meaning it can develop new neural pathways and strengthen underused regions. However, this rewiring process requires consistent practice and environmental changes that support sustained attention rather than fragmented focus. Simply trying harder or using more willpower strengthens the same neural patterns that created the problem in the first place. This scientific understanding provides hope rather than despair. Once you recognize that difficulty focusing isn't a personal failing, but a predictable response to environmental conditioning, you can begin working systematically to restore your brain's natural capacity for sustained attention. The challenge of training a distracted mind isn't new. Humans have faced this same fundamental struggle for thousands of years, long before digital devices existed. Ancient wisdom meets modern crisis. Monks 2,500 years ago developed mindfulness and flow practices to manage mental resistance, methods confirmed by modern neuroscience. These ancient practitioners understood something that modern research is only now validating. The human mind is inherently restless and will seek the path of least resistance unless trained otherwise. Monks living in monasteries faced the same fundamental challenge that Gohan faces today. Their minds would wander during meditation, pull toward comfortable thoughts, and resist the sustained effort required for spiritual practice. The difference was that these ancient practitioners developed systematic methods to work with mental resistance rather than against it. These monks didn't have smartphones or social media, but they faced distractions that were just as compelling in their context. The mind would drift toward memories of life before the monastery, worries about family members, or fantasies about returning to worldly pleasures. During long meditation sessions, practitioners would feel physical discomfort, boredom, or overwhelming urges to move or speak. The human brain's tendency to seek novelty and avoid sustained effort hasn't changed in thousands of years. Only the specific forms of distraction have evolved. The ancient practitioners discovered that fighting mental resistance directly often made it stronger. When they tried to force their minds to focus through willpower alone, they created internal tension that actually increased distraction. Instead, they developed approaches that acknowledged the mind's natural patterns while gradually training it toward greater stability and clarity. These methods form the foundation of what we now call the Lotus Method. The Lotus Method draws from 3 core Eastern traditions that each address different aspects of mental training. Buddhist mindfulness provides the foundation of present moment awareness. This practice teaches you to observe your thoughts and impulses without automatically reacting to them. When the urge to check your phone arises, mindfulness helps you notice the urge itself rather than being swept away by it. You learn to see thoughts as mental events rather than commands that must be obeyed. Taoist flow principles contribute the second element by emphasizing working with natural energy rather than forcing outcomes through effort alone. This approach suggests that maximum effectiveness comes from aligning with natural rhythms rather than constantly pushing against resistance. Applied to focus and productivity, this means learning to recognize when your energy is naturally high and directing challenging tasks to those periods, while using low energy times for routine activities. Zen-focused action provides the third component through practices that cultivate sustained, single-pointed attention. Zen traditions develop techniques for maintaining awareness during everyday activities, not just during formal meditation. This approach trains the mind to remain present and focused regardless of external circumstances or internal mental chatter, teaching that true strength and clarity come from stillness rather than constant activity. Unlike modern productivity systems that fight against human nature, these teachings work with the mind's natural patterns. Most contemporary approaches try to override mental resistance through force, discipline, or clever tricks. They treat the mind like a machine that should operate according to logical principles. Eastern philosophy recognizes that the mind has its own intelligence and natural rhythms that must be respected rather than dominated. The lotus flower symbolizes the transformation that becomes possible through patient, steady progress. This flower grows from muddy pond bottoms, pushing through dark water to bloom in pristine beauty above the surface. The mud isn't an obstacle to the lotus, it's the necessary foundation that provides nutrients for growth. Similarly, mental resistance and distraction aren't enemies to be eliminated, but natural conditions that can fuel development when approached skillfully. Ancient Buddhist texts describe the mind as inherently pure, but clouded by external disturbances. This description sounds remarkably similar to our current digital predicament. These teachings suggest that mental clarity is our natural state, temporarily obscured by conditioning and habitual patterns. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient insight. The brain's capacity for sustained attention isn't damaged by digital distraction, but rather buried under layers of conditioning that can be gradually removed. The key insight that runs through all these traditions is that resistance isn't the enemy. When you feel mental pushback against a challenging task, that resistance contains valuable information about how your energy wants to move. Sometimes resistance indicates that you're forcing something at the wrong time or in the wrong way. Other times it signals that you're approaching a growth edge where real learning can happen. The ancient practitioners learned to read these signals and respond appropriately, rather than bulldozing through every obstacle. Modern research validates what monks knew intuitively. Sustainable focus comes from harmony, not force. Studies of meditation practitioners show increased gray matter in areas associated with attention regulation and decreased activity in brain regions linked to mind wandering. These findings confirm that the ancient methods produce genuine neurological changes that support sustained attention. The Lotus Method adapts these proven principles specifically for the unique challenges of 2025's attention economy. While the core insights remain unchanged, the specific applications must address modern realities like constant connectivity, information overload, and environments designed to fragment attention. The method provides practical techniques for applying ancient wisdom to contemporary situations like remote work, social media management, and digital overwhelm. These Eastern approaches offer something that modern productivity culture often lacks: patience with the learning process. Ancient practitioners understood that developing genuine focus takes time and consistent practice. They didn't expect immediate results or perfect performance. They worked with their minds gradually, celebrating small improvements and learning from setbacks. This attitude creates sustainable progress rather than the boom and bust cycles that characterize many contemporary approaches to productivity and focus. The wisdom embedded in these traditions provides a stable foundation for navigating an increasingly chaotic world. While external circumstances continue to change rapidly, the fundamental principles of mental training remain constant. Learning to work skillfully with your own mind provides a source of clarity and effectiveness that doesn't depend on external conditions or technological solutions. These ancient insights translate into a practical framework: the 4 pillars of Lotus focus. The Lotus Method consists of 4 interconnected practices that systematically retrain the brain for sustained attention. Awareness practice teaches you to observe mental patterns without judgment. Flow alignment helps you work with natural energy rhythms instead of forcing productivity. Stillness cultivation uses brief quiet periods to reset attention and reduce mental noise. Intentional action transforms scattered focus into laser-sharp concentration through deliberate practice. These aren't random techniques thrown together, but carefully designed elements that address different aspects of how your mind processes focus and distraction. Each pillar works with your brain's natural learning mechanisms rather than fighting against them. You'll start with simple, non-judgmental awareness exercises, then adapt timing for your energy peaks, build comfort with unstimulated quiet, and finally apply focused concentration to specific tasks. The first pillar is awareness practice, which develops your ability to notice distraction without judgment or immediate reaction. Most people live their entire lives on mental autopilot, following every impulse and urge without recognizing what's happening. Your brain generates thousands of thoughts each day, and most of them pull you away from whatever you're trying to accomplish. Awareness practice teaches you to step back and observe these mental patterns as they unfold in real time. This isn't about stopping thoughts or eliminating distractions. That's impossible and would create more tension. Instead, you learn to develop what psychologists call meta-awareness, the ability to watch your own mind in action. When you notice your attention drifting toward your phone, you don't immediately grab it or fight the urge. You simply acknowledge what's happening. I'm having the thought that I should check my messages. This small shift creates space between impulse and action. The second pillar is flow, alignment, which teaches you to work with natural energy rhythms rather than forcing productivity. Your body and brain operate on biological cycles that create natural peaks and valleys of mental energy throughout each day. Most people ignore these rhythms and try to maintain constant output, which leads to frustration and burnout. Flow alignment helps you identify when your cognitive function is naturally high and when it naturally dips. This practice requires tracking your energy levels and mental clarity at different times throughout the day. You'll discover that your brain works differently at 9 a.m. compared to 3 p.m. or 8 p.m. Some people think most clearly in the morning, while others find their peak focus happens late at night. There's no universal right answer, only your personal pattern. Once you understand your natural rhythms, you can schedule demanding tasks during high energy periods and save routine activities for when your mental resources are lower. The third pillar is stillness cultivation, which uses brief meditation periods to reset attention and reduce mental noise. Modern minds have lost the ability to be comfortable with quiet, creating underlying anxiety that constantly seeks stimulation. Your brain has become addicted to sounds, information, visual stimulation, or mental activity. When these inputs disappear, even briefly, you might feel restless or uncomfortable. Stillness cultivation starts with very short periods of intentional quiet. You sit without checking your phone, listening to music, planning your day, or engaging in any mental activity. Initially, this might feel almost impossible. Your mind will generate urgent thoughts about things you need to do or problems you should solve. The practice involves observing these thoughts without acting on them, gradually building comfort with unstimulated awareness. The fourth pillar is intentional action, which applies focused awareness to specific tasks with single-pointed concentration. This practice transforms scattered attention into laser-focused engagement through deliberate training. You choose one specific task and commit to working on it for a defined period without switching to anything else. Before starting, you set a clear intention about what you want to accomplish and why it matters to you personally. Each pillar addresses a different aspect of the attention crisis while building upon the others synergistically. Awareness practice gives you the foundation to notice when your mind starts to wander. Flow alignment ensures you're working with your natural energy rather than against it. Stillness cultivation provides the mental stability needed to maintain focus during challenging tasks. Intentional action puts everything together in practical application. Unlike complex productivity systems that require massive life changes or expensive tools, these four elements can be implemented gradually without overwhelming your current routines. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for hours, or completely reorganize your schedule. Each practice starts small and grows naturally over time. You might begin with 1 minute of stillness practice or tracking your energy for just 3 days. The method recognizes that sustainable change happens through consistent practice rather than dramatic overhauls. Most people try to transform their entire approach to work and focus overnight, which creates resistance and often leads to abandoning the effort entirely. The Lotus Method works with your mind's natural learning patterns, which prefer gradual adaptation over sudden shifts. The beauty of this approach lies in its adaptability. Each pillar can be customized to fit individual lifestyles and challenges. A parent working from home will apply these practices differently than a college student or corporate executive. Someone dealing with ADHD might emphasize different aspects compared to someone whose main challenge is social media addiction. The core principles remain constant, but the specific applications adjust to your unique circumstances. You don't need perfect implementation to see results. Even applying 1 or 2 pillars consistently will begin shifting your attention patterns. Many people start with awareness practice because it requires no extra time. You simply begin noticing your mental patterns throughout activities you're already doing. Others prefer starting with stillness cultivation because it provides immediate relief from mental overwhelm. The 4 pillars work together like instruments in an orchestra. Each one contributes something essential, but they create something greater when combined. Awareness practice without intentional action remains theoretical. Flow alignment without stillness cultivation can become just another productivity hack. All 4 together create a comprehensive approach that addresses attention training from multiple angles. This systematic approach stands in contrast to willpower-based methods that ask you to force focus through determination alone. The Lotus Method acknowledges that your brain has been conditioned by years of digital stimulation and distraction. Changing these patterns requires working with your neural plasticity intelligently rather than fighting against established pathways through brute force. The goal isn't to eliminate all distraction or achieve perfect focus. Instead, you develop the skills to recognize when your attention has wandered and guide it back to what matters most. You learn to work with your mind's natural tendencies while gradually strengthening your capacity for sustained concentration. This creates lasting change that doesn't depend on perfect conditions or constant willpower. Understanding how these four elements work together provides the framework, but real transformation happens when you begin applying them systematically. The journey starts with learning to catch your mind in the act of wandering before distraction takes complete control. Awareness practice, catching the hijack. First, learn to spot distractions as they arise without reacting. Meta-awareness. This sounds simple, but most people have never experienced true self-observation. Meta-awareness means watching your thoughts, emotions, and impulses as they arise without getting swept away by them. It's like becoming a scientist studying your own mind. When you feel the urge to check your phone, instead of automatically reaching for it, you notice the urge itself. You observe how it feels in your body, what thoughts accompany it, and how it tries to pull your attention away from your current task. Most people operate on autopilot, unconsciously following every impulse toward distraction without recognizing the pattern. Your brain generates thoughts and urges constantly throughout the day. The thought, "I should check my email," appears, and within seconds you're opening your inbox. The feeling of boredom arises during a challenging task, and immediately you're scrolling through social media. These reactions happen so quickly that you barely notice the transition from focused work to mindless distraction. You might sit down to write a report and find yourself watching YouTube videos 20 minutes later without any memory of how you got there. This autopilot mode develops because your brain is trying to be efficient. It creates shortcuts and habits to reduce the mental energy required for decision-making. When certain situations arise, your brain automatically triggers the same responses it has used before. The problem is that many of these automatic responses now lead toward distraction rather than productivity. Your brain has learned that checking your phone provides instant stimulation, so it suggests this option whenever you encounter difficulty, boredom, or uncertainty. Try a timer that randomly reminds you to notice where your mind is every hour. When the alert sounds, you pause whatever you're doing and examine your mental state. Are you focused on your current task? Is your mind wandering to other concerns? Are you feeling restless or bored? Are you thinking about checking social media or email? The key is answering honestly without judging what you discover. If you notice your mind was completely off task when the alert sounded, that's valuable information, not a failure. You're gathering data about your attention patterns. Over time, you'll start recognizing the specific circumstances that tend to trigger distraction. Maybe you lose focus most often right after lunch, or when you're working on tasks that feel overwhelming, or when you haven't moved your body for more than an hour. This information becomes crucial for understanding your personal patterns of mental resistance. Research shows naming a distraction immediately can reduce its pull. When you notice the urge to check social media, instead of fighting it or giving in to it, you simply acknowledge what's happening. I'm having the urge to check social media. This technique creates psychological distance between you and the impulse. The urge becomes something you're observing rather than something that's controlling you. Neuroscientists call this process affect labeling. FOB and brain scans show it actually reduces activity in the emotional centers of your brain, while increasing activity in areas associated with self-control. The naming process works because it engages your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for conscious awareness and decision-making. When you label an experience, you're shifting from reactive mode to observational mode. Instead of being swept away by the urge, you're stepping back and examining it. This small shift creates the space needed to choose your response rather than automatically following the impulse. The goal isn't to eliminate distracting thoughts, but to create space between impulse and action. Distracting thoughts are normal and natural. Your brain is designed to notice potential threats, opportunities, and changes in your environment. In the modern world, this means your mind will generate thoughts about emails you need to send, conversations you had yesterday, or things you're worried about. Fighting these thoughts directly often makes them stronger and more persistent. Instead of trying to stop thoughts from arising, you learn to change your relationship with them. When the thought, "I should check my email," appears, you don't need to immediately act on it or struggle to push it away. You can simply notice it. "I'm having the thought that I should check my email." Then you can decide consciously whether acting on that thought serves your current goals or pulls you away from what's most important. Practitioners learn to recognize the physical sensations that accompany mental resistance. When your mind starts to resist a challenging task, this resistance shows up in your body as your thoughts, as well as your thoughts. You might notice tension in your shoulders, restlessness in your legs, or a tight feeling in your chest. Your breathing might become shallow, or you might feel sudden fatigue even though you were energetic moments before. These physical signals often appear before conscious thoughts about wanting to quit or switch tasks. This embodied awareness provides early warning signals before distraction takes hold completely. When you learn to recognize the physical signs of mental resistance, you can intervene before your attention completely shifts away from your current task. The moment you notice tension building or restlessness increasing, you can pause and ask yourself what's happening. Are you approaching a difficult part of the task? Do you need a brief break to reset your energy? Are you trying to force focus when your brain needs a different approach? Physical awareness also helps you distinguish between productive resistance and counterproductive resistance. When you're learning something new or pushing your capabilities, some resistance is natural and indicates growth. This type of resistance feels challenging but energizing. Counterproductive resistance feels draining and often comes with physical tension or agitation. Learning to read these bodily signals helps you respond appropriately, rather than pushing through every type of resistance with the same approach. After 2 weeks of consistent practice, the brain begins developing stronger neural pathways for self-observation. These neural changes create a positive feedback loop. As your brain becomes better at self-observation, awareness practice becomes easier and more natural. You start noticing attention patterns automatically, rather than only during designated practice periods. You catch yourself getting distracted sooner and can redirect your focus before completely losing track of your original task. Awareness becomes the foundation for all other aspects of the Lotus Method, because you can't change what you don't notice. Without awareness of your current mental patterns, any productivity technique becomes another thing you're trying to force onto an unwilling mind. When you understand how your attention actually works, you can begin working with your mind's natural patterns rather than constantly fighting against them. Flow alignment, working with natural rhythms. Second, map your natural energy rhythms and schedule your hardest tasks when your focus peaks. Your body and brain operate on biological rhythms that create predictable patterns of high and low cognitive function throughout each day. Most people ignore these natural fluctuations and try to maintain constant output from morning until night. This approach creates unnecessary friction and exhaustion because you're fighting against your biology instead of working with it. Chronobiology research reveals that everyone has specific times when cognitive function peaks and valleys occur naturally. These patterns are controlled by your circadian rhythms, which regulate hormone production, body temperature, and neurotransmitter activity. Your brain produces different chemicals at different times of day, directly affecting your ability to focus, solve problems, and handle complex tasks. Some people experience peak mental clarity in the early morning hours, while others find their sharpest thinking happens late at night. There's no universal schedule that works for everyone. Understanding your personal rhythms requires observation rather than assumption. Many people think they know when they work best, but their beliefs are often based on external expectations rather than actual energy patterns. You might assume you're a morning person because society values early productivity, or believe you're naturally lazy in the afternoon because that's when you feel tired. These assumptions prevent you from discovering your authentic energy cycles. Flow alignment involves tracking energy levels hourly for 1 week to map personal productivity rhythms. This tracking process requires honest assessment of your mental clarity, physical energy, and emotional state throughout each day. Every hour, you rate your energy on a simple scale and note what type of activities feel easiest or most difficult. You track when your mind feels sharp and when it feels foggy. You notice when challenging tasks feel manageable and when they feel overwhelming. The tracking reveals patterns that might surprise you. Many people discover their highest cognitive function happens at times they never expected. You might find that your brain works best at 2 p.m., even though you've been scheduling important meetings in the morning for years. Or you might realize that your creativity peaks in the evening, though you've been trying to do creative work first thing in the morning because productivity experts recommended it. High energy periods become reserved for the most challenging tasks, while low energy times handle routine activities. Once you understand your natural rhythms, you can schedule your day to work with your biology rather than against it. Your peak cognitive hours get protected for the work that requires deep thinking, problem-solving, or creative output. Your lower energy periods become perfect for answering emails, organizing files, or handling administrative tasks that don't require intense focus. This strategic scheduling eliminates the internal conflict that arises from trying to do demanding work when the brain isn't ready. When you attempt complex tasks during low energy periods, your mind generates resistance because it lacks the neurochemical resources needed for sustained focus. This resistance feels like procrastination or lack of motivation, but it's actually your brain trying to protect itself from overexertion. Fighting through this resistance with willpower creates stress and often produces poor quality work. Practitioners learn to recognize the difference between productive resistance and counterproductive force. Productive resistance appears when you're working at your growth edge during high energy periods. This type of resistance feels challenging but energizing. Your brain is working hard, but it has the resources needed for the task. You might feel stretched, but you don't feel depleted. Counterproductive force happens when you try to push through tasks during inappropriate energy states. This resistance feels draining and creates physical tension. The Taoist principle of Wu Wei guides this practice, which translates as achieving maximum results with minimum effort through strategic timing. Wu Wei doesn't mean being lazy or avoiding hard work. It means working intelligently with natural forces rather than constantly fighting against them. When you align demanding tasks with high energy periods, the work still requires effort, but it flows more naturally. You accomplish more while experiencing less internal friction. Studies show aligning tasks with energy peaks significantly boosts productivity. Researchers measured cortisol levels in participants who scheduled work according to their natural energy patterns versus those who followed standard schedules, regardless of their biological rhythms. The group that honored their natural cycles not only completed more work, but also showed significantly lower levels of stress-related chemicals in their bloodstream. The productivity improvements happen because your brain can access its full cognitive resources when timing aligns with biology. During peak energy periods, your prefrontal cortex functions optimally, your working memory operates efficiently, and your neurotransmitters support sustained attention. During low energy periods, these same systems operate at reduced capacity. Trying to force high-level cognitive work during these times is like trying to run a marathon when you're already exhausted. Flow alignment also includes environmental factors that optimize workspace and lighting for sustained focus. Your physical environment either supports or undermines your natural energy patterns. Bright lighting can help maintain alertness during naturally low energy periods, while dim lighting might be more conducive to creative work. Some people focus better with background noise, while others require complete silence. The environmental optimization process involves experimenting with different conditions during your tracked energy periods. You might discover that you focus better with instrumental music during morning work sessions, but need silence during afternoon tasks. Or you might find that changing your physical position, sitting versus standing versus walking, affects your cognitive capacity at different times of day. This pillar transforms work from a constant battle into a dance with natural biological and psychological patterns. Instead of forcing your way through every task regardless of your internal state, you learn to move fluidly between different types of activities based on your available resources. High energy periods become opportunities for breakthrough work that moves your most important projects forward. Low energy periods become chances to handle necessary maintenance tasks while giving your cognitive systems time to recover. Working with natural rhythms also prevents the boom and bust cycles that characterize many people's work patterns. When you try to maintain constant high-level output, you eventually exhaust your cognitive resources and need extended recovery periods. Flow alignment creates steady progress by alternating periods of intense focus with periods of lower demand activity. This rhythm matches how your brain naturally operates and creates sustainable productivity over time. However, even perfectly timed work sessions can fall apart if your mind remains agitated by constant mental chatter and the need for continuous stimulation. Once you've learned to work with your energy rhythms, the next challenge becomes developing the stillness cultivation, resetting mental noise. Third, practice short silent breaks to reset mental noise. Start with 60 seconds and build up. Your nervous system has become accustomed to perpetual input throughout every waking moment. Music plays while you work, podcasts accompany your commute, videos entertain you during meals, and your phone provides endless streams of information whenever silence threatens to appear. This constant stimulation creates a dependency that makes your brain uncomfortable with quiet moments. When external input disappears, even briefly, your mind immediately generates internal chatter to fill the void. Modern minds have lost the ability to be comfortable with quiet, creating an underlying anxiety that fuels distraction-seeking behavior. The absence of stimulation triggers a low-level stress response in your nervous system. Your brain interprets silence as a problem that needs solving, rather than a natural state that can be restful and restorative. This anxiety operates below conscious awareness most of the time, manifesting as restlessness, fidgeting, or sudden urges to check your phone even when you have no reason to expect new information. This stimulation dependency explains why many people find it difficult to sit through meetings without doodling, why they need background noise to concentrate, or why they feel uncomfortable in quiet spaces like libraries or meditation rooms. Your brain has learned to associate constant input with safety and productivity. When that input disappears, your nervous system activates seeking behaviors designed to restore the familiar level of stimulation. Stillness cultivation begins with just 60 seconds of sitting quietly without any input. No phone, no music, no mental planning, no reading, no conversation. You simply sit in a chair with your back straight and allow yourself to experience whatever arises without adding any external stimulation. This might sound easy, but most people find it surprisingly challenging. Within the first 10 seconds, your mind will likely generate thoughts about things you should be doing instead. Your body might feel restless or uncomfortable. You might notice sounds in your environment that you want to investigate or eliminate. The key is maintaining the commitment to stillness despite these internal protests. You're not trying to stop thoughts or achieve perfect calm. You're simply practicing being present without needing to do anything about your mental activity. When thoughts arise, you notice them without following their suggestions. When your body feels restless, you acknowledge the sensation without immediately moving to relieve it. This practice builds tolerance for unstimulated awareness. This micro-meditation practice gradually increases to 5 or 10-minute sessions that serve as attention reset buttons throughout the day. After mastering 60 seconds of stillness, you extend the duration slowly over several weeks. The progression might look like 90 seconds for a few days, then 2 minutes, then 3 minutes, building up gradually until you can sit comfortably for longer periods. These sessions get strategically placed throughout your day to provide mental breaks between demanding tasks. The timing of stillness sessions matters significantly. A 3-minute stillness break before starting an important project helps clear mental residue from previous activities. A 5-minute session after completing a challenging task allows your nervous system to process and integrate the experience. These breaks prevent the accumulation of mental tension that builds up from sustained cognitive effort and constant stimulation. Brief pauses reduce mental fatigue and help maintain focus. Research on mindfulness interventions shows that even short periods of quiet sitting can improve subsequent cognitive performance. Your brain needs periodic breaks from information processing to maintain optimal function throughout the day. These stillness periods provide that necessary recovery time while training your nervous system to become comfortable with unstimulated awareness. The practice isn't about emptying the mind, but developing comfort with mental activity without needing to act on every thought. Many people misunderstand meditation or stillness practice, thinking the goal is to achieve a thoughtless state. This expectation creates frustration because thoughts continue arising regardless of your intentions. The actual skill being developed is changing your relationship with mental activity. Instead of being carried away by every thought, you learn to observe thoughts without automatically reacting to them. This shift requires distinguishing between having thoughts and being controlled by thoughts. During stillness practice, you notice thoughts appearing in your awareness. I should check my email. I need to call my mother. I wonder what's happening on social media. Instead of immediately acting on these thoughts or fighting to suppress them, you simply acknowledge their presence. The thought exists, but you don't need to obey its suggestions. Practitioners learn to observe thoughts like clouds passing through the sky. Clouds appear, move across your field of vision, and disappear without requiring any action from you. You don't need to push clouds away or grab onto them as they pass. Similarly, thoughts arise in your awareness, exist for a period of time, and naturally fade away if you don't engage with them actively. This metaphor helps people understand the temporary nature of mental activity and reduces the urgency to respond to every thought immediately. This observational skill transfers directly to daily life situations. When you're working on an important task and the thought, I should check Instagram, appears, you can recognize it as just another cloud passing through your mental sky. The thought doesn't require immediate action. You can acknowledge its presence and continue focusing on your current priority. This creates freedom from the constant reactivity that characterizes most people's relationship with their thoughts. Regular practice creates a baseline of calm that makes it easier to maintain focus during challenging tasks. When your nervous system is accustomed to periods of stillness, you develop greater tolerance for difficulty and uncertainty. Tasks that previously felt overwhelming become more manageable because your internal environment remains stable, even when external circumstances become demanding. You're less likely to seek distraction when facing challenging work because your baseline anxiety level has decreased. This pillar provides the mental stability needed to implement the other aspects of the Lotus Method effectively. Awareness practice becomes easier when your mind isn't constantly agitated by stimulation addiction. Flow alignment works better when you can accurately assess your energy levels without the interference of underlying restlessness. With this foundation of mental stability established, you're ready to apply everything you've learned to actual focused work sessions. Intentional action, single-pointed focus. Fourth, commit to undistracted single-task sessions, e.g., 25 minutes, setting clear mini-goals before each block. This practice directly addresses the core problem facing millions of people today, the inability to maintain focus on a single task for extended periods. Your brain has been trained to expect constant stimulation and variety, making it difficult to settle into the deep focus required for meaningful work. Intentional action systematically rebuilds your neural pathways for single-pointed attention through structured practice sessions that gradually increase your tolerance for sustained effort. Intentional action begins by choosing one specific task and committing to work on it for exactly 25 minutes without switching to anything else. This time frame represents the optimal balance between challenging your current attention span and avoiding overwhelming your cognitive resources. Most people can maintain focus for shorter periods but struggle beyond this threshold, making 25 minutes an ideal training ground for building mental endurance. The commitment aspect is crucial because it removes the constant decision-making about whether to continue or switch tasks, which depletes mental energy and creates opportunities for distraction. The task selection process requires specificity rather than vague intentions. Instead of deciding to work on the project, you define exactly what aspect of the project you'll address during this session. You might commit to writing the introduction paragraph of a report, researching 3 specific sources for a presentation, or coding one particular function for a software application. This precision helps your brain understand exactly what type of focus is required and reduces the mental overhead of figuring out what to do next during the work period. Before starting, practitioners set a clear intention about what they want to accomplish and why it matters personally. This intention-setting process connects the immediate task to your larger goals and values, providing motivation that sustains focus when the work becomes challenging. The personal connection is essential because your brain responds differently to activities that feel meaningful compared to tasks that seem arbitrary or imposed by external forces. When you understand how completing this specific work moves you toward something you genuinely care about, resistance decreases and engagement increases naturally. The intention also includes visualizing the successful completion of the task and the satisfaction that will come from finishing it. This mental rehearsal activates the same brain regions involved in actually completing the work, priming your neural networks for the type of focus required. People who spend 2 minutes visualizing successful task completion before starting work maintain focus significantly longer than those who begin immediately without preparation. The key is maintaining awareness of attention throughout the work period, gently redirecting focus when it wanders, rather than fighting against distraction with force. This awareness component distinguishes intentional action from simple time blocking or productivity techniques. You're not just working for 25 minutes, you're practicing the skill of attention regulation while you work. When you notice your mind starting to drift toward other concerns, you acknowledge the wandering without judgment and guide your focus back to the chosen task. This redirection process requires gentleness rather than harsh self-criticism. When attention wanders, most people either ignore it completely or berate themselves for losing focus. Both responses are counterproductive. Ignoring mental wandering allows distraction to continue unchecked, while self-criticism creates additional mental activity that further disrupts concentration. The skilled approach involves noticing the wandering with neutral awareness and smoothly returning attention to the task at hand. This isn't about perfect concentration, but about developing the skill of noticing distraction and returning to the task repeatedly throughout the work session. Perfect focus is neither realistic nor necessary for high-quality work. Even experienced meditators and focus professionals experience mental wandering during demanding tasks. The difference lies in how quickly they notice attention has drifted and how smoothly they can redirect it back to their priority. This noticing and returning process is itself a form of mental training that strengthens your capacity for sustained attention over time. Research shows single tasking greatly outperforms multitasking. The brain cannot genuinely focus on multiple complex tasks simultaneously. Instead, it rapidly switches between activities, creating the illusion of multitasking while actually reducing efficiency and increasing errors. The quality improvements from single tasking occur because your brain can allocate its full cognitive resources to one activity rather than spreading them across multiple competing demands. Practitioners learn to recognize the difference between productive struggle and scattered effort that leads nowhere. Productive struggle feels challenging but engaging. Your mind is working hard on the task itself rather than fighting to maintain attention. You might feel stretched by the complexity of the work, but your focus remains connected to the actual content. This type of difficulty indicates you're operating at your learning edge, where real growth and skill development occur. Scattered effort feels frustrating and ineffective. Your mind keeps jumping between the task and various distractions, preventing deep engagement with the work itself. You might spend significant time and energy but produce little meaningful progress. This spinning your wheels sensation indicates that your attention is fragmented rather than genuinely focused. Learning to distinguish between these two states helps you respond appropriately rather than pushing harder when the real need is to reset your mental state. The method includes specific techniques for handling resistance, boredom, and the urge to switch tasks midstream that inevitably arise during focused work sessions. When resistance appears, you pause briefly to examine what's happening without immediately trying to fix or eliminate the feeling. Sometimes resistance indicates you're pushing too hard and need to adjust your approach. Other times, it signals that you're approaching something genuinely challenging where persistence will lead to breakthrough. After each focused session, a brief reflection period helps consolidate learning and celebrate progress made during the work period. This reflection involves reviewing what you accomplished, how well you maintained focus, and what you learned about your attention patterns. The celebration component is crucial because it reinforces the neural pathways associated with sustained focus, making future sessions easier and more natural. This pillar builds the mental muscle for sustained attention that becomes stronger with consistent practice, transforming your relationship with challenging work from struggle to skill. However, mastering these 4 foundational practices is only the beginning of developing genuine focus in today's world. Overcoming modern obstacles. Digital platforms exploit variable rewards to hijack your focus. Turn off non-essential notifications. The digital landscape has evolved into something far more sophisticated and psychologically manipulative than earlier generations experienced. Social media platforms now employ teams of neuroscientists and behavioral economists to design interfaces that exploit specific vulnerabilities in human psychology. These systems learn your personal triggers, track your usage patterns, and deliver content precisely calibrated to capture your attention at moments when your willpower is weakest. Every scroll, like, comment, or share provides data that helps these systems understand exactly what content will keep you engaged longest. The algorithms identify your emotional triggers, political interests, relationship concerns, and career anxieties, then surface content that activates these psychological pressure points. When you're trying to focus on important work, these platforms send notifications containing information specifically chosen to override your current priorities. The addiction mechanisms built into these platforms create what researchers call continuous partial attention, where your brain maintains a background expectation of stimulation even when you're not actively using your devices. Your nervous system stays primed for the next notification, making sustained focus feel uncomfortable and unnatural. This state of perpetual readiness to respond creates mental tension that underlies most modern attention problems. The Lotus Method includes practical techniques for managing digital environments without completely disconnecting from technology, recognizing that total digital abstinence isn't realistic for most people in 2025. The approach involves strategic curation of your digital environment rather than wholesale rejection of technological tools. You learn to distinguish between technology that serves your goals and technology that serves corporate engagement metrics. Email, collaborative software, and educational platforms can support meaningful work when used intentionally. Social media feeds, recommendation algorithms, and attention harvesting apps typically work against sustained focus. Practical digital management starts with notification auditing. You examine every app on your devices and eliminate notifications that don't serve immediate practical purposes. Text messages and calendar alerts might stay active, while social media notifications, news alerts, and promotional messages get disabled completely. The goal is creating periods of uninterrupted focus, rather than living in constant reactive mode to external stimuli. Remote work presents new distraction challenges that didn't exist when most people worked in traditional office environments. Home environments lack the focus cues that offices provided through physical separation, social expectations, and environmental design. Your kitchen, bedroom, and entertainment areas all compete for attention within the same space where you're trying to accomplish serious work. Family members, roommates, and domestic responsibilities create interruptions that office buildings naturally filtered out. The psychological boundaries that separated work time from personal time have dissolved for remote workers. Your laptop sits on the same table where you eat meals and watch movies. Your bedroom might double as your office, creating confusion between rest space and productivity space. The commute that used to provide transition time between different mental modes has disappeared, leaving you to manage these transitions consciously. Practitioners learn to create physical and digital boundaries that support sustained attention in any environment through deliberate environmental design. Physical boundaries involve establishing dedicated workspace areas that exist solely for focused work, even in small living spaces. This might mean using a specific chair that you only sit in during work hours, or designating one corner of a room as your focus zone. The key is training your brain to associate certain physical locations with sustained attention rather than casual activity. Digital boundaries involve creating separate user accounts, browsers, or even devices for work versus personal activities. Your work computer stays logged out of social media platforms. Your personal phone gets placed in another room during focus sessions. These separations help your brain distinguish between focused work mode and relaxation mode, reducing the cognitive load of constantly resisting tempting applications. The method addresses productivity guilt, which manifests as modern anxiety about not being busy enough or optimizing every moment of your existence. Social media amplifies this pressure by providing constant exposure to other people's curated productivity performances. You see posts about morning routines, workout schedules, side hustles, and achievement milestones that create internal pressure to constantly improve and optimize your own life. This comparison culture generates anxiety that actually reduces focus and performance rather than enhancing it. Productivity guilt creates internal tension between relaxation and accomplishment that prevents genuine rest and genuine focus. When you're resting, you feel guilty about not being productive. When you're working, you worry that you're not optimizing your approach enough. This dual anxiety keeps your nervous system activated and makes sustained attention more difficult to achieve and maintain. Comparison culture amplified by social media creates internal pressure that reduces focus and performance by shifting your attention from internal goals to external validation. Instead of focusing on the intrinsic satisfaction of completing meaningful work, your brain starts tracking how your progress compares to what others are sharing online. This external focus fragments attention and creates emotional volatility that interferes with sustained concentration. The Lotus approach emphasizes personal progress over external benchmarks, reducing the anxiety that fuels distraction-seeking behavior. You learn to measure success based on your own growth patterns rather than comparing your inside experience to other people's highlight reels. This internal focus creates sustainable motivation that doesn't depend on constant external validation or competitive comparison. Specific protocols help handle interruptions from family, roommates, or unexpected urgent requests during focus periods without abandoning the practice entirely. These protocols involve clear communication about your needs, pre-established signals that indicate focused work time, and flexible responses to genuine emergencies. You establish agreements with household members about when interruptions are appropriate and when they should wait until your focus session ends. The interruption protocols include rapid assessment techniques for determining whether something truly requires immediate attention or can wait until your focus period concludes. Most interruptions feel urgent but aren't actually time-sensitive when examined carefully. Learning to distinguish between genuine emergencies and perceived urgencies protects your focus time while maintaining important relationships. Building flexibility into the practice while maintaining core principles requires understanding which elements of the Lotus Method are essential and which can be adapted to changing circumstances. The 4 pillars remain constant, but their specific applications adjust to your current environment and constraints. You might practice shorter stillness sessions during busy periods, while maintaining the daily rhythm of awareness practice. The key lies in protecting the essence of focused attention, rather than rigidly following predetermined schedules or techniques. When unexpected demands arise, you respond skillfully without abandoning your commitment to sustained focus entirely. This flexibility prevents all-or-nothing thinking that leads people to quit practices entirely when life becomes complicated or unpredictable. These strategies address the most common obstacles practitioners encounter, but understanding how to implement them is different from seeing their actual impact. The true test of any method lies in how it performs when applied consistently across real-world results and applications. Real-world applications across diverse professions demonstrate the Lotus Method's practical effectiveness when implemented consistently. Users report improved focus within weeks, with benefits spanning different industries, age groups, and work environments. The method adapts to virtually any professional or personal context, producing measurable improvements in productivity and overall life satisfaction when practiced with commitment and patience. One study found remote workers save 72 minutes commuting daily and redirect that time into productive work. This time reclamation represents just one example of how environmental changes can support sustained attention. Remote workers who apply Lotus principles create dedicated workspace boundaries and establish clear transitions between focused work periods and personal time, leading to better outcomes in both areas. Software developers report significant productivity gains by protecting their peak cognitive hours for complex programming tasks, while handling meetings and administrative work during natural low-energy periods. The awareness practice helps them recognize when their minds start fragmenting across multiple projects, while flow alignment ensures they tackle demanding coding challenges when their brains are naturally sharp. Many discover their most productive programming happens during specific windows that they had never consciously identified before. Graduate students find the method particularly effective for overcoming research paralysis and writing blocks that can stall academic progress for months or years. The intentional action pillar helps them engage deeply with complex academic texts without the scattered attention that leads to reading the same passages repeatedly without retention. Brief stillness periods between research sessions allow their minds to process dense information before moving to the next source, improving both comprehension and synthesis. Entrepreneurs discover that focused attention on high-impact activities produces better business results than staying constantly busy with low-value tasks. The method helps them distinguish between activities that feel productive and activities that actually generate revenue or advance strategic goals. Flow alignment reveals when their creative energy peaks for developing new offerings, while awareness practice reduces the anxiety-driven need to monitor metrics constantly throughout the day. Healthcare workers adapt the techniques to maintain focus during long shifts despite constant interruptions from patients, colleagues, and medical equipment. Nurses use awareness practice to stay present during patient interactions even when their minds are occupied with multiple competing priorities. Emergency room physicians apply brief stillness periods between cases to reset their mental state and maintain diagnostic clarity under pressure. The intentional action approach helps medical professionals sustain concentration during detailed procedures that require extended focus despite chaotic hospital environments. Creative professionals initially worry that structured focus periods might restrict their artistic flow, but most discover the opposite effect. Musicians use awareness practice to notice when their practice sessions become mechanical rather than engaged, helping them stay present with the music they're creating. Writers apply flow alignment to identify their peak creative energy periods and protect these times for original composition rather than editing or administrative tasks. Visual artists find that intentional action helps them maintain focus during detailed work that requires hours of sustained attention to achieve professional quality results. Parents successfully integrate the method into complex lifestyles that balance career demands with family responsibilities. Working parents often feel torn between professional obligations and family time, leading to guilt and fragmented attention in both areas. The Lotus Method helps them be fully present during designated work periods and fully engaged during family time, rather than operating in constant partial attention mode that serves neither commitment effectively. Parent practitioners learn to communicate boundaries clearly with family members about when focused work time is protected and when they're available for interruptions. They use stillness practice during brief moments throughout the day, while coffee brews, during car rides, or after putting children to bed, to reset their mental state between different types of demands. This helps them transition more smoothly between professional focus and family engagement without carrying stress or distraction from one context into the other. The method proves effective across age groups, from college students dealing with social media addiction to executives in their 50s facing attention challenges related to information overload and decision fatigue. Younger practitioners often struggle more with digital distraction management, while older practitioners typically need help adapting to increased cognitive demands and technological complexity in modern workplaces. However, the core principles of awareness, flow alignment, stillness cultivation, and intentional action address fundamental attention training needs that transcend generational differences. The key factor in all success stories is consistent practice rather than perfect implementation of every technique. People who achieve lasting results focus on establishing regular rhythms with the 4 pillars rather than trying to execute each practice flawlessly from the beginning. They start small, building sustainable habits gradually, rather than attempting dramatic lifestyle overhauls that create resistance and eventual abandonment of the entire approach. Successful practitioners also adapt the methods to their specific circumstances, rather than following rigid prescriptions. A busy parent might practice stillness cultivation for 2 minutes instead of 10, while someone with a flexible schedule might extend intentional action sessions to 45 minutes. The principles remain constant, while the applications adjust to individual constraints and preferences. Results typically begin appearing within 2 to 3 weeks, with significant improvements stabilizing after 6 to 8 weeks of regular practice. Early improvements often include better sleep quality, reduced anxiety around challenging tasks, and increased satisfaction with daily accomplishments. Longer-term benefits develop as neural pathways strengthen through consistent training, making sustained focus feel more natural and less effortful over time. Most practitioners report that the method becomes self-reinforcing as the benefits accumulate, creating positive momentum that makes continued practice feel rewarding rather than demanding. The initial effort required to establish new habits gradually transforms into natural rhythms that support sustained attention without constant willpower. This transformation suggests that reclaiming mental clarity isn't about forcing focus through determination alone, but about working skillfully with the mind's natural learning patterns. The transformation happens through practice, not theory. The Lotus Method retrains attention where willpower fails. Start small and work with your brain. While technology companies spend billions studying how to capture your focus, these ancient techniques provide the antidote to digital manipulation. You don't need perfect conditions or hours of free time to begin this transformation. Start with just 1 pillar today. Even 60 seconds of stillness practice can begin rewiring your brain for better focus. Your ability to do hard things isn't about forcing yourself through resistance. It's about understanding your mind's patterns and training it gradually towards sustained attention. If you found this useful, subscribe for more practical